The sound that broke the afternoon was not a shout or a crash, but a thin, sharp yelp that carried pain far older than the moment itself. It cut through the noise of traffic and laughter like a blade, the kind of sound that makes strangers turn their heads even before they understand why their hearts have tightened. On the concrete outside a busy shopping plaza, an old service dog stumbled, its graying legs folding awkwardly as fear flickered through tired eyes that had once seen battle, fire, and loss. What happened in the next few minutes would ripple far beyond that pavement, changing lives that had never planned to intersect, and reminding everyone who witnessed it that cruelty and kindness are never as small as we think. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may be hurting in silence. The dog's name was Ranger, though most people passing by never knew it. He wore a faded harness that marked him as a service animal, the letters worn smooth by years of use and countless hands that had once patted him in gratitude. Ranger walked slowly beside his handler, an elderly man named Thomas Hale, whose posture had been permanently altered by age and old injuries that no longer earned medals or salutes. Thomas leaned on a cane, his movements careful, deliberate, as though each step had to be negotiated with memories that lived inside his bones. Ranger had learned that rhythm long ago. He matched it instinctively, guiding, steadying, pausing whenever Thomas needed to catch his breath. They were a team shaped by time, by loss, and by loyalty that did not need words. The plaza was crowded that day, filled with people rushing toward sales, food, and distractions. To most of them, Thomas and Ranger were an inconvenience, moving too slowly through a world that prized speed. Moving too slowly through a world that prized speed and noise. A group of younger men stood near the entrance, laughing loudly, their attention drifting from phones to passers-by. It started with a careless shove meant to clear space, then a muttered insult, and finally a sharp kick aimed low and fast. Ranger took the blow meant for nothing more than amusement, his old body unable to dodge the way it once could. The impact knocked him sideways, and his yelp echoed with the weight of years spent protecting others. Thomas did not see the kick clearly, but he felt the sudden pull on the harness and the loss of balance that followed. Panic rose in him like a tide, familiar and unwelcome. His hand tightened on the cane as he bent toward Ranger, his breath shallow, his heart hammering with the old fear of losing the one anchor that kept him steady in a world that often blurred and spun. Around them, some people slowed, others stared, and many pretended not to notice at all. Indifference can be as loud as cruelty, especially when it has a crowd to hide behind. Ranger struggled to stand, his legs trembling, his breathing uneven. This was not the first pain he had known. He had once pulled Thomas from the edge of a burning building, guided him through crowded streets during panic attacks, and woken him from nightmares born decades earlier. Ranger had been trained to ignore fear, to absorb stress, to keep going no matter what his own body felt. But age had a way of collecting debts. His joints ached constantly now, his vision dimmed, and every injury lingered longer than it used to. Still, he tried to rise, because that was who he was. As Thomas knelt beside him, murmurs spread through the crowd. Someone whispered about the men who had done it, already walking away, their laughter fading as if nothing of importance had occurred. Another person lifted a phone, not to help, but to record. A young mother pulled her child closer, discomfort written across her face, as though compassion itself might be contagious. The world hovered in that uneasy space where something wrong had happened, and no one was quite sure who should act. What many did not know was that Ranger was not just any service dog. He had been paired with Thomas nearly 12 years earlier, after Thomas returned home from service with injuries that could not be seen on scans. Ranger learned to sense the subtle changes in Thomas's breathing that signaled an oncoming panic attack. He learned to brace when Thomas's leg gave out, to lead him away from crowds when memories threatened to overwhelm. Ranger had slept beside hospital beds, waited patiently through therapy sessions, and stood guard during nights when sleep refused to come. In return, Thomas had given Ranger a home, a purpose beyond training manuals, and a love that was quiet but unshakable. The kick reopened more than physical pain. As Thomas stroked Ranger's fur with shaking hands, shame crept in, sharp and unexpected. He felt responsible, as though his slowness had invited the cruelty, as though he had failed to protect the one who had protected him for so long. That feeling was familiar too, a shadow from years when he had survived while others had not. He whispered reassurances only Ranger could hear, though his own voice trembled. Responsibility. An ambulance was called, not for Thomas, who insisted he was fine, but for Ranger. The decision was not easy. Thomas hated the idea of letting go of the harness, even briefly. But the nurse's calm explanation, the gentle way she spoke about pain and age and the need for care, helped him nod in agreement. As Ranger was carefully lifted, his eyes never left Thomas. The bond between them stretched but did not break. At the veterinary clinic, the reality of Ranger's condition became clear. Bruised ribs, a strained hip, and the compounded wear of years of service weighed heavily on his aging body. The vet spoke softly, but the words carried gravity. Recovery would be slow. Ranger might never move with the same steadiness again. Retirement, long discussed and always postponed, was no longer an abstract future. It stood at the door, unavoidable. Thomas sat in the waiting room, hands clasped, memories flooding in uninvited. He thought of the day Ranger had been placed with him, a young, alert dog with eyes full of focus. He thought of all the moments since, the quiet victories that no one applauded, the days they both simply endured together. The idea of life without Ranger felt like standing on unstable ground, the old fear of being alone pressing in. News of the incident spread faster than anyone expected. Someone had posted the video, but not the way cruelty often goes viral. This time, the outrage outweighed the apathy. People recognized the harness, the age in Ranger's movements, the vulnerability of both dog and handler. Messages of support poured in. Offers to help with veterinary bills, with transportation, with anything Thomas might need began to appear. The plaza management identified the men involved, consequences followed, and apologies were issued, though they felt thin against the harm done. What changed everything, though, was not punishment. It was the way the community rallied around a story they could not ignore. Local veterans groups reached out, recognizing one of their own in Thomas. Animal welfare organizations shared Ranger's story, highlighting the unseen toll of service on animals as well as humans. A fundraiser was organized, not just to cover medical costs, but to ensure Ranger's remaining years would be comfortable, dignified, and filled with the gentleness he had earned. When Ranger finally came home, the neighborhood welcomed him like a hero. Children who had never noticed service dogs before learned his story. Adults paused, not out of impatience, but respect. The plaza installed clearer signage, trained staff, and partnered with local groups to promote awareness about service animals and invisible disabilities. What had begun as an act of cruelty became a catalyst for change that touched far more lives than Ranger's alone. Thomas still walked with his cane, and Ranger still walked at his side, though their pace was slower now. There were moments of pain, days when memories resurfaced, but there was also a new layer of warmth woven into their lives. Strangers smiled more often. Offers of help came without pity. The world felt, if not safer, then at least more awake. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you of the quiet strength and loyalty and the power of standing up when it matters, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps spread kindness further than you may ever see. Before we reach the end, we have one special request for you. Please comment below with the words "Kindness protects" if you believe that compassion can change lives, one small act at a time. Ranger now spends his days in sunlit patches on the floor, his harness hanging nearby like a medal earned through years of service. Thomas sits close, sometimes in silence, sometimes lost in thought, but never truly alone. The pain they endured did not disappear, but it was transformed, reshaped by the hands and hearts that chose to respond with care. And in that transformation lies the quiet truth this story leaves behind. When cruelty strikes the vulnerable, the response of ordinary people can become extraordinary, changing everything for the better.